He sat in the hospital hallway, hands shaking, eyes red. His father had passed just hours earlier, and all he could think about was their last conversation. Not because it was meaningful, but because it ended in silence. "I'm not proud of you." Those were the last words his father had said, and he too, angry to respond, walked away. That silence lasted forever. Words spoken in heat. Words left unspoken in fear. Miscommunication had built a wall so high that not even love could climb it. It wasn't hate. It was the lack of knowing how to communicate. And by the time he realized that, it was too late. This is not just one man's story. This is millions of people, every day, in marriages, friendships, workplaces, and families, misunderstood, misheard, disconnected. But communication isn't just words. It's the lifeline of every connection we have. And when it fails, everything else crumbles. So let's learn to rebuild that lifeline together. What is communication? Really? Let's begin with a question. When was the last time you felt truly understood? Not just heard, but understood where someone got what you were feeling, even before you finished your sentence. That moment of connection, that spark, that's what real communication feels like. But here's the twist: most of us don't even know what communication really is. We think it's talking, words, language, but it's not. Talking is noise. Communication is meaning. There's a difference. You can speak for hours and still say nothing. And you can say a single sentence that changes someone's life forever. That's the power we're talking about. Communication is connection. Imagine two people on opposite sides of a river, each of them shouting. They want to connect, but there's no bridge. That bridge is communication. It's how you cross over and stand in someone else's world. Not just to say something, but to be with them. When a child is crying and the mother picks them up without a word, that's communication. When two friends sit in silence after bad news, no words, just presence. That's communication. When someone says, "I'm fine," but you can feel they're not, that's communication too. So, real communication is not just about what's said, it's about what's felt. Why we often get it wrong. We grow up learning grammar and vocabulary, but no one teaches us how to speak with kindness. We're told to write essays, but not to read between the lines of someone's pain. We're trained to speak, but not to understand. So we go into the world thinking, if I explain myself well, that's enough. If I talk louder, they'll finally get it. If I repeat it, they'll listen. But people don't remember your words. They remember how your words made them feel. That's the truth no one tells you. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. You can say, "I love you" with anger, and it won't land. You can say, "I'm sorry" with ego, and it won't be accepted. You can say, "I'm fine," while your eyes tell another story. Tone, timing, and truth. These are the real tools of communication. You could tell someone, "I believe in you," but if your tone is cold and your timing is wrong, your message disappears. So ask yourself, when you speak, are your words and your energy saying the same thing? If not, you're creating confusion, and confusion breaks connection. Communication is listening. 2. Most people think talking is the main part. It's not. Listening is half the conversation. And not just waiting for your turn to speak, but really listening to understand, to feel, to receive. You'll see this more in the next section, but it's important to know now. Listening is not passive. It's active. It's powerful. And it might be the thing your relationships are missing. Communication has layers. Let's go deeper. There's what you say. There's what you mean. There's what they hear, and then there's what they feel. You might say, "You're late." What you meant, "I was worried." What they hear, "You're irresponsible." What they feel, "I'm not good enough." See how it breaks down? That's why communication is not just about expression. It's about perception. You're not just sharing your message. You're shaping how someone sees themselves, their choices, even their worth. This is not a small responsibility. It's one of the biggest. Words build or break. Words have built nations. Words have started wars. Words have saved lives. Words have destroyed families. One sentence can inspire a person to chase their dream. Another sentence can make someone give up. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of communicator are you? Do your words bring light or bring confusion? Do you speak to be understood or just to be right? Because what you say matters, and how you say it matters even more. The silent conversations. Sometimes the most powerful communication happens without words. A hug at the right moment. A pause in an argument. A hand on the shoulder when someone feels alone. Or the decision to not say something cruel, even when you could. These silent choices, these unspoken actions are part of communication too. It's not always what you say that makes the difference. Sometimes it's what you don't. The communication mirror. Here's a truth that stings a little. The way you communicate reflects your inner world. If you're always defensive, maybe you feel attacked inside. If you interrupt others, maybe you feel unheard. If you speak harshly, maybe you've been spoken to that way before. The way we talk to others often mirrors how we talk to ourselves. So before changing how you speak to the world, you may need to change the words you speak within. Conclusion: it all starts here. So what is communication really? It's not just talking. It's not just writing. It's not just gestures or emojis or perfectly crafted sentences. It's connection. It's emotion. It's the bridge between your truth and someone else's understanding. And, like any art, it can be learned, piece by piece, one conversation at a time. Now that you understand what communication truly is, we can explore its deeper parts: how to truly listen, how to use tone, silence, and timing, how to deal with conflict and speak from empathy. This is only the beginning. Let's go deeper together. Listening, the silent superpower. Let me tell you a story. There was once a teacher wise, calm, respected by all. Students would come to him, hoping to hear his wisdom. But one day, a young man came, not to ask, but to speak. He sat down and spoke for over an hour, about his problems, his dreams, his failures, his fears, and the teacher said nothing. At the end, the young man stood up and said, "Thank you, Master. You've given me so much clarity." The student left lighter, clearer, transformed. But the teacher had not spoken a single word. What had he given? He gave the one thing the world had taken from that young man, a space to be heard. Why listening is so powerful. Listening is not passive. It's not just waiting for your turn to speak. It's not nodding politely while thinking of your reply. Listening is presence. It is attention, without agenda. It is giving someone the feeling, I see you. I hear you. You matter. Most arguments aren't about facts. They're about people feeling ignored, dismissed, or misunderstood. And the moment someone feels heard, even just a little walls come down. Hearts soften. Healing begins. Listening heals what talking can't. Sometimes people don't need advice. They don't need fixing. They just need to be heard. A grieving friend doesn't want solutions. A child crying in frustration doesn't want logic. A partner venting after a long day doesn't want you to fix it. They just want to know, are you with me right now? Can you hold this space for me without judgment? That's listening. Why we struggle to listen. So, if it's so powerful, why don't we listen better? Because we're human. We want to feel important. We think we already know what the other person will say. We fear silence. We get distracted by our own thoughts. Sometimes we listen with our ears, but not our hearts. Other times, we're too busy preparing our response while the other person is still speaking. And sometimes, We simply don't value listening because we think silence is weakness. But silence isn't weakness. Silence is strength under control. Listening is more than words. Here's something we often forget. People don't always say what they mean, but they always feel what they mean. That's why great listeners don't just hear words. They hear pauses. They notice what's not being said. They feel the tone behind the sentence. Someone may say, "I'm fine," but the crack in their voice says otherwise. To listen is to tune in not just to speech, but to emotion. The gift of listening. Listening is the purest form of respect. When you give someone your full attention, you're telling them, "You matter enough for me to pause my world and enter yours." And in return, they begin to open, to trust, to connect. Because at the heart of listening is something deeper, empathy. And that's what we'll explore more in the next section. Signs you're not listening. Let's be honest. Most of us think we're better listeners than we are. Here are some subtle signs that you're not really listening. You interrupt frequently, even with good intentions. You finish people's sentences. You feel bored and zone out. You steer the conversation back to yourself. You jump into solving the problem immediately. If you've done any of these, don't judge yourself. We've all been there. But awareness is the first step to change. How to listen. Like a master. Let's talk about what great listeners do differently. 1. They are fully present, phone down, mind clear, eyes engaged. 2. They reflect. So, what I'm hearing is, this shows understanding, not just hearing. 3. They ask gentle questions. How did that make you feel? Not to control, but to explore. 4. They pause before responding. Giving space is powerful. It says, "I value your words." 5. They don't rush to fix. Validation first. Solutions later. This kind of listening takes practice, but it transforms relationships. 1 conversation at a time. Listening in conflict. Here's where listening truly gets tested. During conflict. When emotions are high, we often listen just to defend, to find holes in the other person's argument, to prepare our comeback. But what if, instead, we listened to the pain beneath the words? What if we asked ourselves, what hurt is hiding behind this anger? What need is going unmet? Listening in conflict isn't about surrendering. It's about seeking truth over ego. Listening to yourself. Now, here's something most people overlook. You must learn to listen to yourself, to the quiet voice beneath the noise, to the tension in your body, to the feelings you often ignore. If you're always silencing yourself, how can you fully hear others? Self-awareness begins with self-listening. It's the foundation of emotional intelligence, and we'll explore this deeper in an upcoming section. The ripple effect of listening. One good listener in a family can shift the entire dynamic. One good listener in a team can reduce conflict and increase trust. One good listener in a friendship can make someone feel whole again. Listening creates safety, and where there is safety, there is growth. Listening is a lifelong practice. The truth is, listening is not something you master in a day. It's a skill, a mindset, a commitment. You may mess up. You may drift. You may get distracted. But every time you return, every time you choose presence over performance, you build the muscle of deep, conscious listening. Closing thoughts. So remember, listening isn't something you do while waiting to speak. It is the conversation. It's the space between words where real understanding lives. And when you learn to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart, you become someone people trust, someone they feel safe with, someone who communicates not just clearly, but compassionately. And that is power. The power of pausing at times. The most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Not because you have nothing to offer, but because in that moment, a pause can do what words cannot. Welcome to one of the most underrated skills in communication: the power of pausing. The space between notes. Imagine music. If it were just sound constant, non-stop, it would be noise. But music becomes beautiful because of the pauses between the notes. Those silences give rhythm. They give emotion. They give space for the soul to feel. Communication is exactly the same. The words we say matter. But the space between those words? That's where clarity lives. That's where power begins. A story of a pause that saved a life. Let me tell you a story. A young man stood on the edge of a bridge. He wasn't there to enjoy the view. He was lost, overwhelmed, ready to give up. Just as he was about to let go, an old man walking by stopped. He didn't shout. He didn't rush over. He just stood there and said, "I don't want to stop you, but may I sit with you first?" Silence. The young man didn't respond. He just froze. The old man sat next to him, quietly for minutes. That pause, that stillness, it gave space for the young man to feel seen. Eventually, the old man spoke, gently, calmly. But it wasn't his words that saved the boy. It was the pause, that sacred moment of not doing, of not reacting, that gave room for the storm to settle. That's the power of a pause. Why we're afraid to pause. In conversations, most people are afraid of silence. We fill gaps with noise, we rush to respond, we interrupt. We fear that if we don't say something quickly, we'll seem unprepared or weak or awkward. But the truth is, only people who are truly confident know how to pause. A pause says, "I'm thinking. I value what you just said. I'm not rushing this moment. I am present." That's strength, not weakness. The pause between listening and responding. In the last section, we talked about the power of listening. But what comes after listening? That moment right before you speak is a choice, and that choice becomes powerful when you pause. A pause helps you. Reflect before reacting. Choose better words instead of saying something you'll regret. Adjust your tone to match the moment. And most of all, it helps you respond instead of just reacting. The pause. During conflict, let's be real. In arguments, most of us are just waiting for our turn to speak. We get triggered. We feel attacked. We shoot back quickly. But when you pause, even for 2 seconds, something amazing happens. Your brain shifts from reaction to reflection, from defense to understanding. It allows you to ask, what's really going on here? Is this worth fighting over? Can I speak in a way that helps, not hurts? Sometimes a 2-second pause can prevent a 2-year regret. Leaders pause before speaking. Think of the greatest communicators. Presidents. Spiritual leaders, coaches, therapists. What do they all have in common? They pause, they don't rush, they let their words land. They allow silence to do its magic. And because of that, when they speak, people listen. A pause creates anticipation. It creates depth. It signals wisdom. How to use the pause in conversation. Let's get practical. Here's how to use the pause effectively in your daily life. 1. Before you speak. Pause, take a breath, let your thoughts settle, speak with intention. 2. After someone speaks, pause, don't rush to reply, let their words echo, then respond with care. 3. In emotional moments. Pause, emotions are loud. Pausing gives them room to calm down. 4. In storytelling, pause, a pause before the punchline, before a big idea. It draws people in. 5. When you don't know what to say, pause. Silence is okay. It's better than filling space with confusion. The psychological power of a pause. Our minds process information rapidly, but emotion takes a little longer. A pause gives the listener time to catch up, to absorb, to feel what you just said. It creates gravity. and gravity gives your words weight. In fact, some of the most powerful moments in speeches are not the lines themselves, but the silence that follows them. Pausing is a form of respect. When you pause, you're not just helping yourself. You're honoring the moment. You're respecting the other person's thoughts, feelings, and dignity. You're saying, "I'm not here to win this conversation. I'm here to understand it." That's maturity. That's presence. That's connection. Training the habit of pausing now. How do you develop this skill? Like any skill, it takes awareness and practice. When you feel tempted to jump in, pause. When your heart starts to race in an argument, pause. When you feel misunderstood, pause before defending. When someone shares something personal, pause to honor it. Even 1-second pauses can make a huge difference. With practice, it becomes natural and, eventually, powerful. Pausing builds emotional intelligence. Pausing is not just about conversation, it's the key to emotional self-regulation. Before reacting to anger, pause. Before making a big decision, pause. Before assuming someone's intent, pause. You'll be amazed how much clarity rushes in during those brief silences. The pause is your power. Let's remember this. A pause is not emptiness. It's not weakness. It's not delay. A pause is a doorway to better connection, to wiser words, to deeper understanding. It's the moment between noise and clarity. Connecting to what comes next. In our next section, we'll talk about emotional intelligence in communication. And, as you've already seen, pausing is one of its core tools. Because once you learn to pause, you gain the space to choose your emotion, to choose your words, and to choose your impact. So, start small. One breath, one beat, one moment of silence. That's how you learn the language of meaningful communication. Clarity over complexity. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling more confused than when it started? Maybe the words were smart. Maybe the person sounded impressive. But still, you didn't get it. That's what happens when complexity takes over clarity. And here's the truth. In communication, complex isn't clever. Clear is clever. Why people complicate their words. Let's face it. Most people think the more complicated their words, the smarter they'll sound. Big words, long sentences, fancy phrases. But in reality, it often hides insecurity, because truly confident communicators don't try to impress you, they try to reach you. And the best way to reach someone is to make sure they understand you. Real understanding is simple. Think of the smartest people in the world. Scientists, philosophers, great teachers, the ones we remember most? They could take the most complex ideas and explain them like they were talking to a 10-year-old. Not because they were dumbing it down, but because they truly understood it. If you really understand something, you can explain it in simple words. That's clarity. A story that proves the point. There's a famous story about Richard Feynman, one of the greatest physicists of all time. He had a rule. If you can't explain it to a child, you don't understand it well enough. So when he was asked to explain quantum mechanics, he didn't start with equations. He started with a marble, a small bouncing ball, and step by step he used that simple example to describe something infinitely complex. His audience didn't just hear him, they understood him. That's what we aim for in great communication. Simplicity that leads to clarity. Confusion builds walls. Clarity builds bridges. Every time we speak, we're either building a wall or a bridge. Walls are built from unclear words. Bridges are built from clarity. Clarity makes people feel safe. It invites connection. It gives people the gift of understanding. And when people feel understood, they listen longer. How complexity pushes people away. When you speak in a way that's hard to follow, people stop listening. They feel small, they disconnect. Or worse, they pretend to understand and walk away confused. That means your message is lost, even if your words were brilliant. Your goal isn't to be remembered for your vocabulary. It's to be remembered for your impact. And impact only happens when your message lands clearly. The curse of knowledge. Here's the problem many of us face. We forget what it's like not to know what we know. This is called the curse of knowledge. You've studied a topic for years, you've worked in your field, you've practiced your skill. So when you talk about it, it makes sense to you but not to others. This is why leaders, teachers, and even parents need to slow down and simplify. Not to sound basic, but to actually connect. Simple is not stupid. Let's make one thing clear. Simple language is not stupid language. In fact, it takes more intelligence to speak simply than to sound complicated. Simplicity shows control. It shows purpose. It shows that you value the other person's understanding more than your own ego. Examples of clarity versus complexity. Let's compare. Complex. In order to mitigate the ramifications of miscommunication, one must ensure the deployment of strategic articulation. Clear. To avoid misunderstandings, speak clearly and with purpose. Which one feels more powerful? Exactly, because clarity doesn't try to sound smart. It is smart. How to speak with clarity. So how do you practice clarity? Here are a few ways. 1. Use short sentences. Keep your ideas tight, let one idea lead to the next. 2. Choose familiar words. Don't use commence when start will do. 3. Pause often. Give space for your listener to absorb what you're saying. Ask yourself, would a 12-year-old get this? If not, rephrase it. 5. Cut the fluff. Don't add 5 sentences when one will work. 6. Repeat important points. Repetition builds clarity. It helps people remember. Listening for clarity. Here's the secret. Clarity doesn't just come from speaking well. It comes from listening well. If you listen closely to your audience, whether it's one person or 100, you'll start to hear where they're confused. You'll notice when they get lost. And then you can adjust how you speak. Communication is not just about delivering. It's about making sure what you deliver is received. Clarity builds trust. When people understand you, they begin to trust you. They trust that you're not hiding behind jargon. They trust that you care about their experience. They trust that you're leading them somewhere, not talking over them. Clarity opens the door for connection, and in communication, connection is everything. When emotions cloud. Clarity. Sometimes our own emotions make it hard to be clear. We speak too fast. We speak too much. We speak from fear or anger instead of calm. This is where the previous sections connect. Pausing helps you calm down. Emotional intelligence helps you choose your tone. Listening shows you where they are. Put all that together, and clarity becomes natural. Clarity isn't just for speaking. Let's be honest. We don't just speak to others. We speak to ourselves, too. The stories we tell ourselves, the way we think, needs clarity, too. When your mind is cluttered, your message will be too. So speak to yourself with clarity. Know what you want. Know what you feel. Know what you need to say. Because clear thoughts lead to clear speech. Clear speaking. Clear impact. Let's bring it all together. Clarity is a gift. It's a gift to your listener. It's a gift to yourself. It's a tool that turns information into transformation. People don't remember everything you say, but they will remember how clear you made them feel. So the next time you're about to speak, ask yourself, am I making this clearer or just more complicated? Leading into the next section. In the next part of our journey, we explore emotional intelligence in communication. And you'll quickly see how clarity combined with empathy becomes a superpower. Because when your words are clear and your heart is in the right place, your message moves people. The danger of neglecting. Tone. Without the right tone, even the most important message falls flat. A parent says, "I love you," without warmth, and the child questions if it's true. A leader says, "I believe in you," without conviction, and the team feels empty. Words without tone are like food without flavor. They nourish nothing. From awareness to mastery. Here's where everything connects. From previous sections, you've learned to pause with purpose, choose clarity, listen deeply. Now, you layer on tone the emotional texture of speech. When your tone matches your message, when your tone is tuned to your audience, you go from being a speaker to being a communicator. Final thoughts. You can say the right thing the wrong way and lose the moment. Or you can say a simple thing the right way and win hearts. Tone isn't decoration, it's the delivery system of your intention. So speak with feeling. Speak with awareness. Speak like your tone matters because it does. Your tone tells people whether your words can be trusted. And in communication, trust is everything. Nonverbal language. Let's begin with a silent conversation. Two people walk into a room. They don't speak a word, but one of them walks confidently, head held high, shoulders back. The other keeps glancing around, arms crossed, eyes down. They haven't spoken, but you've already made assumptions. That is the power of non-verbal communication. It's the language we all speak, but most of us never truly understand. Let's decode it. Words make noise. The body speaks truth. You can say, "I'm okay," while trembling. You can say, "I'm confident," while shrinking. Words can lie. But your body, face, posture, and gestures, they tell the real story. Nonverbal language is not a supporting role in communication. It is the main performance. It accounts for how people feel about what you say, and how much they believe it. Why nonverbal language matters. You speak all the time, even when you're silent. The moment you walk into a room, people start reading you. They read your posture, your expressions, your hands, your eyes, even the space you keep. These signals create an instant impression, and often they speak louder than anything you'll ever say. So, let's break it down. Posture. What your body says. When you're not speaking. Your posture reveals your mindset. If you stand tall and open, you show confidence. If you hunch or fold in on yourself, you show uncertainty or insecurity. Even sitting posture matters. When you lean forward slightly during a conversation, it says, "I'm interested." When you lean away, it can say, "I'm closed off." And you don't have to speak a word. Facial expressions. The instant mirror. A smile. A raised eyebrow. A clenched jaw. All of these send messages instantly. Facial expressions are hard to fake because they come from emotion. And people are experts at picking up even the smallest cues. You can try to act calm, but if your face is tense, your audience knows something's wrong. Learning to control your facial expressions means learning to control your message. Eye contact, connection, without words. Eyes are often called the windows to the soul, because through your eyes, people feel presence or absence. When you look someone in the eyes, you say, "I'm here. I see you. I'm listening." Too little eye contact feels like disinterest or dishonesty. Too much can feel like pressure or intimidation. But the right balance? It builds connection, trust, and attention without saying anything at all. Hand gestures, speaking through movement. Your hands emphasize your message. They can make your ideas look alive and animated, or they can distract and confuse. Open palms show honesty. Pointing can seem aggressive. Fidgeting can show nervousness. Controlled gestures can help explain, clarify, and engage. When you use your hands with purpose, they become a tool, not a distraction. The space around you. Proximity and presence. How close you stand to someone matters. Get too close, It can feel invasive, stay too far. It can feel distant. The space we keep, known as proxemics, communicates comfort, respect, or dominance. In different cultures, these boundaries shift, but the principle remains. The space you take up, the distance you keep, they all say something. Be aware of them. Your voice is part of it. 2. We covered tone of voice before, but let's remember, your voice, its rhythm, volume, pauses, forms a nonverbal impression too. Sometimes a sigh says more than a paragraph. A pause creates more meaning than 100 words. Nonverbal isn't just physical. It's energetic. It's felt. Nonverbal. Listening communication isn't just about how you speak. It's also about how you listen. And we don't just listen with ears. We listen with our face, our posture, and our presence. When you nod, keep eye contact and lean in slightly. You signal, I'm here, I care, I'm engaged. That's nonverbal listening, and it makes people feel heard more deeply than just saying, I understand. The danger of mismatch. Imagine someone says, I'm so happy for you, but they say it flatly. No smile. Arms crossed, avoiding eye contact. What message do you believe? Words or body? This is called incongruence, when verbal and nonverbal messages don't match, and it creates confusion, distrust, and emotional disconnection. True, effective communicators align their message, inside and out. You're always saying something. Even when you don't think you are, you're communicating. Your silence, your expressions, your movements, your stillness, they all speak. When you understand this, you become more powerful, more precise, more aware. You stop letting your body leak the wrong message, and you start letting your body deliver the right one. Training your non-verbal awareness. You can build this skill. Here's how. 1. Watch people without listening. Mute a video. Try to read what's being said from body language alone. It sharpens your instincts. 2. Mirror practice. Speak to yourself in the mirror. Watch your expressions. Notice your posture. Would you believe you? 3. Record and review film yourself speaking. Not to criticize, but to observe your non-verbal patterns. 4. Ask for feedback. Others notice things you don't. Ask how your presence feels in a room. 5. Stay present. The more present you are, the more naturally your nonverbal communication aligns. Because when you're fully in the moment, your body communicates truth, without effort. In high-stakes moments, nonverbal is everything. In job interviews, in negotiations, in relationships, in leadership, your body enters the room before your words do. That first impression, it's not made by what you say. It's made by how you stand, how you look, how you move. The best communicators know this, and they own the silent parts of communication. From words to wholeness. So far in this journey, we've explored listening, pausing, tone, clarity, and now, you see, all of it comes together through nonverbal communication. It's not an extra layer. It's the thread that holds it all together. Because when your body and your words move in harmony, you don't just speak well. You speak with presence. You speak with power. You speak with truth. The word alone can make us tense up. It triggers memories of arguments, disagreements, and those moments when understanding feels completely out of reach. But here's the truth. Conflict isn't the enemy of communication. Poor handling of conflict is. When managed with emotional intelligence and clarity, conflict can actually strengthen relationships and deepen trust. Let's begin with this. Every conflict carries two parts, the issue and the emotion. Most people get lost in the emotion and ignore the real issue. They raise their voices, defend their pride, and forget to listen. That's where communication fails. Now remember our last discussion. Emotional intelligence in conversation. That skill is your compass during conflict. It tells you when to speak, when to listen, and when to pause. And yes, the power of pausing can save an entire relationship. Let's walk through some principles that transform conflict into a doorway for connection. 1. Stay calm when storms rise. When a disagreement begins, our bodies respond. Heart rate rises, breathing changes, our tone sharpens. The first step is to be aware of this reaction. You might feel the urge to interrupt, shout, or storm off. But in that moment, take a breath. Say nothing. Let the wave pass. Calm is contagious. If you stay calm, it invites the other person to come back down too. 2. Listen like you don't know. One of the most powerful tools in conflict is curiosity. Ask yourself, what is this person really trying to say? What fear or need might be behind their words? Often, behind anger is hurt. Behind defensiveness is fear. If you listen not just to the words, but to the emotions underneath, the entire conversation shifts. 3. Don't aim to win. In communication, especially during conflict, winning is losing. When both sides try to win, connection is lost. The goal should never be to beat the other person. It should be to understand and to be understood. You're not opponents. You're on the same team trying to fix a shared problem. 4. Use I statements. Say, I feel unheard when, instead of, you never listen. This small shift removes blame. It helps the other person hear you without feeling attacked. It invites conversation rather than defensiveness. 5. Stay on one topic. Avoid what's called kitchen sinking, bringing up every past mistake in one conversation. Stay focused, talk about one issue, resolve it. Then, if needed, move on. Overloading a discussion only makes it harder to reach a solution. 6. Know when to pause. Sometimes, the smartest move is to take a break. If emotions are too high, agree to come back later, but make sure to return. Pausing isn't avoiding. It's allowing both sides to reset and reflect. 7. Choose words. Carefully, during conflict, words can become weapons. Be mindful. Don't say things you'll regret. Use words that open the door, not slam it shut. Say, help me understand, or let's figure this out. These phrases build bridges. 8. Acknowledge the other person's emotions. Even if you disagree, you can validate someone's feelings. Say, I see this really upset you, or I get why you're hurt. Validation doesn't mean agreement. It just means you recognize their emotions as real. 9. Focus on resolution, not blame. Ask questions like, what would help make this better? Or, what can we do differently? These shift the energy from the past to the future. They move the conversation toward healing, not hostility. 10. Reflect before reacting. After a conflict, reflect. Ask yourself, what could I have done better? Did I truly listen? Did I respond or react? This reflection is how we grow. It's how we bring more awareness into the next conversation. Conflict, when handled with awareness and intention, is not a wall. It's a doorway to deeper understanding, to stronger relationships, and to becoming a better communicator. As we move into the next section, remember this. Communication isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about showing up in it with calm, clarity, and compassion. Let that guide every conversation from here on. Empathy. The missing link. In the journey of communication, we've explored clarity, tone, listening, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and honesty. But there's one element that ties everything together: empathy. Without empathy, all communication becomes mechanical. Empathy is the human bridge. It's the emotional thread that allows us not just to understand, but to feel what someone else feels. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy says, I feel sorry for you. Empathy says, I understand you. I feel with you. It's not about fixing, rescuing, or advising. It's about being with someone, emotionally, without judgment. Let's start with a simple truth. Everyone you talk to is fighting a battle you can't see. Behind every face is a story. Behind every word is a wound or a dream. And when you begin to speak with that awareness, everything changes. Imagine a colleague snapping at you during a meeting. The instinct is to snap back, defend yourself. But if you pause and ask, what might they be going through? You shift from reaction to reflection. You open the door for compassion. Empathy begins with listening. Empathy is built on listening, not just with ears, but with your whole presence. It's noticing what's said and what's not said. It's catching the sigh between words, the silence behind a smile. You can only be empathetic when you're fully there. Empathetic listening sounds like, that sounds really tough. Tell me more. I can see how that would be frustrating. You don't have to go through this alone. Sometimes it means sitting in silence and just holding space. Words aren't always needed. Presence is. Why empathy matters in communication. Without empathy, communication becomes a power game. Who's right, who wins, who's louder. But with empathy, it becomes a connection. It becomes a space where both people feel heard, seen, understood. Empathy builds trust. When someone feels that you get them, they soften, they open, they lower their walls. And from that space, real communication, honest, vulnerable, impactful, can begin. Empathy and conflict. Think back to the previous topic. Communication during conflict. Empathy is what transforms conflict into growth. It's what lets you say, I hear you, even when you disagree. It's what lets you see the fear behind anger, the pain behind blame. When two people argue, both often feel unseen. But empathy shifts the conversation from I'm right to I care. And that shift makes all the difference. Empathy and boundaries. Empathy doesn't mean you abandon your boundaries. In fact, true empathy includes yourself. You can say, I understand how this affects you, and I also need to take care of myself. You can be kind and clear, gentle and grounded. Practicing empathy daily. When someone is upset, pause your urge to solve the problem. Ask questions instead of giving advice. Reflect back what you hear. So you're feeling overwhelmed because? Resist the temptation to share your story. Just be with theirs. Empathy is not a talent. It's a choice, a muscle. And like all muscles, it grows with use. Empathy towards yourself. One of the hardest places to show empathy, yourself. We beat ourselves up. We judge our emotions. We shut down our needs. But the way you treat yourself becomes the blueprint for how you treat others. When you mess up in a conversation, can you say, I did my best? When you feel hurt, can you honor it without guilt? That's empathy. And the more you give it to yourself, the more naturally you offer it to others. Empathy in professional settings. In the workplace, empathy creates stronger teams. A leader who listens with empathy earns respect. A teammate who acknowledges stress builds trust. Empathy improves communication, collaboration, and even performance. It helps resolve misunderstandings faster. It reduces defensiveness. It creates a culture where people feel safe to speak up. Empathy is not weakness. Some fear empathy will make them soft or weak, but empathy takes strength. It takes courage to slow down, open your heart, and step into someone else's world. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing. It means understanding. You can disagree respectfully. You can hold different truths and still connect. Empathy is a language of the heart. The most powerful conversations don't come from the mind. They come from the heart. Empathy lets you speak that language fluently. And when you do, your words don't just land. They heal. So, as we move into the next topic, carry this with you. Every time you choose empathy, you invite connection. You build a bridge. You speak a deeper truth. And in a world that often rushes past emotion, empathy is a radical act of human courage. Communication is not just about what you say, it's about how you make people feel. And empathy is the missing link that makes your words truly matter. The power of asking the right questions. Imagine being in a room full of people, everyone talking, sharing, expressing. Now imagine someone asks a question. Suddenly, the noise fades, heads turn, eyes focus. That one question becomes a spotlight, and the answer becomes a revelation. That's the power of asking the right question. Communication isn't just about speaking clearly. It's not even just about listening well. Real communication, the kind that transforms relationships, careers, and even lives, starts with a question. Why? Because questions unlock the truth. They open doors that statements cannot. They create a space where the other person can be seen, heard, and understood. Let's begin with something simple but profound. Questions invite clarity. When we ask someone, "What did you mean by that?" or "Can you explain that a bit more?" we don't just gather information. We show we care. We create space for honesty and connection. Empathy, as we discussed before, is about feeling with someone. Questions help us get there faster. But it's not just about asking anything. It's about asking the right questions. Let's explore 3 types of questions that change the way we communicate. Open-ended, reflective, and clarifying. Open-ended questions are the doorway to discovery. What's been on your mind lately? How did that experience shape you? These types of questions allow the other person to tell their story in their own words. It gives them the floor, and when people are given the floor, they open up. Their guard drops. Their truth comes out. Reflective questions are where empathy meets understanding. These sound like, "When you said that, were you feeling overwhelmed?" Or, "Did that remind you of something from your past?" Reflective questions show that you're not just listening. You're listening deeply. You're seeing the emotion beneath the surface. Clarifying questions are what help avoid confusion. They're practical and powerful. Do you mean you were upset with the situation or the person? When you say "that always happens," what exactly do you mean by always? These questions aren't aggressive. They're respectful. They're curious. And curiosity is a sign of true engagement. Now let's talk about intention. Why are you asking the question? Is it to manipulate or to understand? Is it to control the conversation or to explore the truth? The right question asked with the wrong intention can backfire. But even a simple question asked with genuine care can break barriers. Let's go deeper. Think about how asking questions affects power dynamics in communication. In most conversations, people assume the person talking has the power. But that's not always true. The person asking the questions often guides the entire direction of the interaction. It's subtle, but powerful, like a compass pointing north. That's why therapists, coaches, leaders, even great parents, they ask questions more than they give advice. Because they know something we often forget. People are more likely to change when they discover answers on their own. Questions allow people to find their truth, not just hear ours. Let's talk about trust. When you ask someone about their feelings, about their beliefs, about their memories, you're stepping into sacred ground. If you ask with respect and patience, you build trust. If you interrupt or judge their answers, you break it. Every question has a tone, not just in the voice, but in the intention behind it. Is it safe? Is it genuine? Is it curious? Next time you're in a conversation, try this. Instead of preparing your response, prepare your question. Instead of thinking, "What should I say next?" think, "What can I ask that helps us both go deeper?" Let's also recognize that questions don't only affect others. They change us too. When we get into the habit of asking thoughtful, meaningful questions, our minds become more open. Our judgments soften. Our understanding deepens. And this isn't just in conversations with others. It works internally too. Ask yourself, why did I react that way? What belief is behind this feeling? What am I afraid of? These questions guide our inner growth. They connect us to our own subconscious patterns. Communication isn't just about talking well. It's about thinking well, asking well, listening well. Before we end this section, here's a simple but life-changing principle. Ask more, assume less. Assumptions are silent killers of communication. They close doors. Questions open them. So, as we move forward, carry this with you. Questions are not a weakness. They are a strength, a tool, a key. Use them to unlock deeper relationships, better understanding, and a more thoughtful life. Because sometimes the right question is more powerful than the perfect answer. Self-talk. Communicating with yourself. Before we ever speak a word to someone else, we speak to ourselves. That internal voice, your self-talk, is the most powerful conversation you'll ever have. It shapes the way you think, feel, and act. It affects your confidence, your mood, your relationships, and even your decisions. If you're constantly saying to yourself, "I'm not good enough," "I always mess things up," or "no one will understand me," those thoughts start becoming your reality. Not because they're true, but because you repeat them so often, they start to feel true. Let's go back to what we talked about in the last section. The power of asking the right questions. Now, take that inward. What questions are you asking yourself? Are you saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" Or are you asking, "What can I learn from this?" One question leads to a wall. The other opens a door. Self-talk is the bridge between your inner world and your outer world. If the bridge is broken, it becomes hard to connect with others. If it's strong, you show up in conversations with more clarity, calm, and confidence. Let's explore the 3 types of self-talk: negative, neutral, and positive. First, negative self-talk. This is the critic inside you. It says, "I'm not good enough. I'll never change. They probably don't like me." It often sounds like a voice from the past, maybe a parent, a teacher, or a harsh moment that stuck. Over time, it becomes automatic. But here's the truth. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it's right. Second, neutral self-talk. Neutral self-talk is like a mirror. It reflects what's happening without adding judgment. Instead of saying, "I failed again," it says, "That didn't work. Let's try something else." Neutral self-talk brings awareness. It's steady, calm, clear. It doesn't hype you up or tear you down. It just tells the truth. Third, positive self-talk. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing empowering words that help you grow. It sounds like, "I've overcome challenges before. I can do this again." Or, "I don't know the answer yet, but I'm willing to learn." Positive self-talk builds resilience. It helps you bounce back. It strengthens your mental muscles. Now, let's talk about why self-talk matters in communication. Think of someone who constantly doubts themselves. They walk into a room, and their energy says, "I don't belong here." They speak softly, avoid eye contact, apologize too much. It's not that they aren't capable. It's that their inner dialogue has already defeated them. Now imagine someone whose inner voice says, "I have value. I may not know everything, but I can connect, I can learn, I can contribute." That energy is magnetic. It's not arrogance, it's self-trust. And it shows. If you want to communicate better with others, start by noticing how you communicate with yourself. Catch the small moments. When you spill your coffee, what's your first reaction? "I'm so clumsy," or "Oops, no big deal." When you make a mistake, do you say, "I'm a failure," or "That was tough, but I'll do better next time"? Every moment of self-talk is a message you're sending to your brain, and your brain listens closely. Now here's something powerful. You can rewire your self-talk. Start small. Replace "I can't" with "I'm learning." Replace "I always mess up" with "Sometimes I struggle, but I keep going." This isn't just feel-good talk, it's science. The brain responds to language. What you say, you believe. What you believe, you become. Let's go deeper. Your identity is shaped by your repeated self-talk. Here are 3 tools. 1. Awareness. Pay attention. What's the tone of your inner voice? Is it harsh, rushed, dismissive? Simply noticing it is the first step toward change. Second challenge. Ask, is this thought helpful? Would I say this to a friend? If not, change the script. Third practice. Make affirmations part of your day. Not fake ones, but real, grounded truths. Like, I'm allowed to take up space. My voice matters. I am growing. And remember this, self-talk is not about perfection. You will still have off days. Doubts will still come. But now you'll know how to respond. Instead of letting your inner voice attack you, you can train it to support you. And the more you support yourself, the better you'll show up for others. Because communication is not just about what you say, it's about how you say it to yourself first. So next time you feel nervous before a conversation, check in. What is your mind saying? And if it's something like, I don't know if I can do this, respond gently. It's okay to be nervous, but I've prepared. I care. I'm ready. That's how transformation begins. Not out there, but in here. Because the most important conversation is the one you have with yourself. The role of timing. When you speak, matters as much as what you say. Part 1. Timing is the invisible language. Think of a moment when you said the right thing, but it still went wrong. You were honest, you were clear, but the reaction? Silence. Or worse, anger. That's the unseen power of timing. Timing is the invisible rhythm beneath our words. It's the difference between someone hearing you and someone actually listening. You could offer the most comforting words to a friend, but if they're in the middle of a breakdown, even kindness can sound like noise. You could suggest a great idea in a meeting, but if the room is tense or distracted, it might fall flat. We often obsess over finding the right words, but the wise communicator studies when to speak just as much as how to speak. Part 2. The window of receptivity. There's a window, often very small, when the other person is open. Emotionally, mentally, physically. Think of it like a window of receptivity. It's the moment when their defenses are down, when their ears are truly open, when their mind is ready. Miss that window, and the best intentions can sound like criticism. Catch it just right, and even difficult truths can feel like care. This isn't manipulation, it's sensitivity. It's knowing that words are not just launched, they are received. Part 3. Emotion has its own clock. When people are upset, angry, or overwhelmed, their inner clock ticks differently. Say something too soon, and it's dismissed. Wait too long, and the opportunity slips away. Timing is about more than patience. It's about reading emotional time. In emotionally charged situations, the best communicators don't rush in. They pause, they breathe, they sense. Not to avoid the truth, but to give the truth a better chance to be heard. Part 4. Silence before, silence after. Here's something many miss. Great communication often begins and ends in silence. A beat of quiet before you speak can create presence. It pulls attention. It shows calm. A beat of quiet after you speak allows your words to settle, to land, to be processed. Think of it like music. Without space between the notes, it's just noise. The same is true in conversation. Part 5. When you wait, you gain power. In negotiation, in conflict, in relationships. The person who can wait, who isn't rushed to speak, often has the most influence. Why? Because waiting shows you're not desperate. You're not reacting. You're choosing. That choice gives you strength, not just in words, but in presence. And in communication, presence is power. Part 6. Timing and Trust. There's something else timing reveals. Trust. When someone waits to speak until the right moment, it shows care. It shows they're not just talking to talk, they're talking with purpose. This builds trust. People trust those who don't just rush to fill silence, but who respect the rhythm of conversation. Part 7. The right time for hard truths. Some truths are heavy. You don't toss a heavy object to someone who isn't ready to catch it. Hard truths need a soft moment. When someone feels safe. When they're not under fire. When they feel seen. The most effective communicators know this. They don't avoid difficult topics, but they choose when to deliver them. And because of that, those truths are more likely to be heard, held, and healed. Part 8. Cultural and Situational Timing. Timing isn't the same in every culture or situation. In some places, directness is appreciated instantly. In others, it's better to wait. In high-pressure meetings, quick delivery might be necessary. In emotional conversations, slower is better. There's no one-size-fits-all. The skilled communicator doesn't follow rules blindly. They read the room, they sense, they adapt. Part 9. Internal Timing. How you feel shapes. When you speak, sometimes we speak too soon because we are uncomfortable. We want to fix things, fill the silence, prove ourselves. But internal timing matters too. Before you speak, ask, am I calm? Am I centered? Am I saying this because it's needed, or just because I need to? If your inner state is anxious or reactive, the best timing might be to wait. Wait until your thoughts settle, your heart slows, your words align with wisdom. Part 10. Timing as a form of respect. Speaking at the right time isn't just effective. It's respectful. It says, I see you. I sense your space. I'm not here to dominate, but to connect. That's what real communication is about. Not just transferring words, but building understanding. And that can't be rushed. Timing teaches us one of the most powerful lessons in communication, that space isn't empty. It's meaningful. In that space, trust grows. Emotions settle. Truths find room. In our next chapter, we'll explore something equally powerful, the art of asking the right questions, because sometimes what unlocks connection isn't what you say, but what you ask. Digital communication in the modern age. In the world we live in now, conversations don't always happen face-to-face. Many of them happen through screens, in texts, emails, voice notes, and video calls. It's quick, it's easy, and it's convenient. But just because it's fast doesn't mean it's effective. Let's go back a few years. Imagine a young man named Adil. He just landed his first job and wanted to impress his manager. He had great ideas, strong work ethics, and the hunger to grow. But Adil had one weakness. He avoided face-to-face conversations. Every update, question, or report he sent was through text or email. Over time, misunderstandings grew. One email sounded too blunt. A short reply felt rude. And eventually, despite his talent, Adil was seen as cold and distant. Not because he was, but because digital communication changed how people felt him. That's the power and the danger of digital communication. Let's explore how we can use it wisely. How to make technology work for our communication, not against it. 1. The convenience trap. The first thing we must understand is this. Digital tools are helpful, but they can make us lazy. It's easier to send a text than to make a call. But ease doesn't always mean better. A typed message lacks tone, energy, emotion, all the things that make human interaction rich and meaningful. When we rely too much on texting, we risk losing depth. Important messages can feel rushed. Emotions can be misunderstood. Jokes can sound offensive. Silence can feel like rejection. That's why we must think before we text. 2. The tone illusion. Let's talk about tone, or rather, the lack of it. In a face-to-face conversation, your tone says more than your words, but in digital messages, tone disappears. A simple "okay" can sound cooperative or angry. An emoji can add warmth or confusion. Without tone, the mind of the receiver fills in the blanks, and often it fills them with fear, doubt, or suspicion. That's why clarity matters even more online. Use complete thoughts. Be polite, even in short texts. Avoid sarcasm unless you're sure it will be understood. In the digital world, miscommunication isn't rare. It's normal unless we try harder. 3. Timing and digital communication. Remember our previous topic on timing. In digital spaces, timing still matters. A late reply can feel like ignoring. A fast one might feel careless. A message at the wrong hour can feel intrusive. Digital platforms give us 24/7 access, but that doesn't mean we should use them without thinking. Respect time zones. Know when to pause. Know when to follow up. Just like in real life, timing builds trust. 4. Choosing the right medium. Not all messages belong in a text. Some need a voice, others need a video call. Some deserve a well-written email, and others still require an in-person meeting. A good communicator knows which channel suits the message. If you're sharing feedback, don't hide behind an email. If you're saying sorry, don't just drop a line. And if you're discussing something emotional, let them hear your voice. Digital tools give us choices. Choose with care. 5. Emojis, punctuation, and shortcuts. Let's talk about the small things that make a big difference. Emojis can add friendliness, but overuse them, and you seem immature. Punctuation can change the meaning of your sentence. "Let's eat, Grandpa" is not the same as "Let's eat, Grandpa." And then there are abbreviations. K, LOL, OMG, IDK. They may save time but can damage clarity or tone depending on context. Use them wisely. Communicate like someone who cares to be understood. 6. The culture of instant replies. There's pressure today to respond instantly, and if we don't, we worry we'll be seen as rude, careless, or uninterested. But fast isn't always better. Take time to understand. Reflect before you reply. It's better to respond late with thought than to answer quickly with confusion. And if someone takes time to reply, be patient. Everyone's fighting silent battles. Respect silence. Assume the best. 7. Over-communication versus under-communication. In digital spaces, people often fall into two traps: saying too much or saying too little. Over-communicators send walls of text, repeated follow-ups, or emotional bursts. Under-communicators give one-word replies, ignore messages, or vanish mid-conversation. Effective communication lies in balance. Share enough to be clear, not overwhelming. Stay connected without drowning the other person. Remember, your message is not just what you send. It's how the other person receives it. 8. Privacy, respect, and digital boundaries. Just because you can reach someone anytime doesn't mean you should. Respect people's digital boundaries. Don't send messages late at night. Don't expect replies immediately. And never forward personal messages or screenshots without permission. Digital communication is still human communication. Treat it with the same respect you'd show in a person. 9. Digital silence, reading between the lines. Sometimes people stop replying, no explanations, just silence. Digital silence can feel like rejection, but it's not always about you. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're struggling, maybe they just don't have the words. We must learn not to overread digital silence, And when we go silent, a short message, "I'll reply soon," can keep the connection alive. 10th, building connection in a digital world. Despite the risks, digital tools can deepen connections. You can send a kind message to someone far away. You can share something thoughtful in seconds. You can make someone feel seen with a few honest words. It's not the medium, it's the intention. Speak with warmth. Write with kindness. Text with clarity. Be the person who makes others feel better, even through a screen. Digital communication is not a replacement for real connection. It's a bridge, a powerful one if used with heart and intention. As we continue to explore the art of communication, remember this. Even the most advanced technology cannot replace a message that's filled with empathy, respect, and clarity. Let's not just send messages. Building lifelong connections through conversation. Imagine this. You walk into a room full of strangers. At first, it feels cold, unfamiliar. But then someone smiles and asks you, "So, what brings you here?" That one question. That one spark of genuine interest. Suddenly, the room feels warmer. That's the power of human connection. And every connection starts with a conversation. But not every conversation becomes a connection. Why? Because most people speak to be heard. Few speak to understand. And fewer still speak to build something lasting. In this final chapter, let's explore how we can go beyond small talk, beyond surface-level words, and start building lifelong connections through intentional, honest, and meaningful conversation. 1. From talking to relating. We've all had conversations that felt empty. Words were exchanged, but nothing real was shared. No emotion, no energy, no bond. Now think of the opposite. A moment where you spoke with someone and time disappeared. You both opened up, laughed, listened, understood each other. That's when a conversation becomes connection. To get there, we must shift from "what can I say" to "how can I relate?" Stop performing. Start relating. 2. Be more interested than interesting. It's easy to think we have to impress people in conversations. Be witty. Be sharp. Be knowledgeable. But here's a secret. People don't connect with those who impress them. They connect with those who care. Ask thoughtful questions. Listen without interruption. Make the other person feel like they matter. Because at the end of the day, people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. 3. Vulnerability. The bridge to intimacy. Many of us are scared to show our real selves. We hide behind jokes, opinions, or confidence. But deep connection requires vulnerability. Share your story. Admit your struggles. Be open about your fears, your hopes, your values. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And when someone sees your real side, they often feel safe to show theirs. That's where real conversations live. That's where lifelong bonds are born. 4. Be present. Fully. In our world of constant distractions, presence is rare. But when you give someone your full attention, your eyes, your silence, your interest, it's a gift they never forget. Put down your phone. Pause your thoughts. Be with the person in front of you. Don't just hear their words. Feel their emotions. That's presence. And that's what makes people feel seen. 5. Celebrate and support. Conversations that build connection aren't just about solving problems or discussing deep ideas. Sometimes it's simply about being there, cheering someone on, celebrating their small wins, comforting their pain. Support builds trust. Joy builds bonding. Be the person who celebrates their joy without jealousy, who listens to their pain without fixing it, who walks beside them, not ahead. 6. Conflict can deepen connection. We often avoid conflict in relationships, but healthy conflict, handled with respect and honesty, doesn't break connection. It strengthens it. When you disagree with someone but still treat them with kindness, You show them that your bond is bigger than your ego. Apologize when needed. Forgive without making them beg. Speak your truth, but always with care. Connection grows not just in peace but in how we walk through conflict together. 7. Remember the little things' names, birthdays, what they love, what they fear. It's the small things that make someone feel remembered. And when someone feels remembered, they feel valued. You don't have to be poetic or wise to build connection. Sometimes it's a message that says, "Hey, I remembered you mentioned your interview today. Wishing you luck." That's it. That's how hearts stay close, even across distance. 8. Depth over breadth. It's easy to chase more followers, more friends, more likes. But connection isn't about numbers, it's about depth. One honest conversation with one person can be more powerful than 1,000 likes from strangers. So go deep, be real, choose quality over quantity, and invest in the relationships that feed your soul. 9. Be consistent. A connection isn't built in one conversation. It's built over time. Be consistent, show up, check in, stay curious, stay caring. True connection is like a fire. If you don't keep adding wood, it dies out. But with steady effort, it can warm both hearts for a lifetime. 10th. Make room for growth. People change. And if you want to keep a connection strong, allow room for that change. Don't lock people into who they used to be. Don't cling to old versions of them. Celebrate their growth. Grow alongside them. Ask new questions. Share new dreams. Connection that lasts adapts, evolves, and keeps learning each other, again and again. As we close this journey on the art of effective communication, let's remember something simple but powerful. Every time you speak with someone, you're not just exchanging words. You're planting seeds. Some will grow into nothing. Others will blossom into memories, into trust, into love, into lifelong connection. It's not about being perfect with your words. It's about being real with your heart. When we speak with care, listen with love, and show up with presence, we don't just talk, we transform. And that is the art of effective communication. You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't need to force success or chase peace. You just need to plant better thoughts. One belief at a time. One image at a time. One quiet command at a time. Feed your subconscious truth. Feed it hope. Feed it vision. Because your life will always grow in the direction of your mind. And now, you know how to take the wheel.